you feel about school taking up an extra hour every day to teach basic adult stuff like washing clothes, basic cooking, paying taxes? Story 1 ID be opposed to the extra hour, but not the activity. School was already an 8-hour-a-day thing. Pushing it up to 9 hours means it actually becomes longer than a full-time job, and that's before you get to homework and like that. Story 2 My rural school did this in the aughts. Home EC, sewing, taxes, cooking, woodworking, etc. Could even get into metalworking, accounting, quilting, pottery, etc. if you wanted to. Story 3 Schools have these already, and the kids in them don't care. It's not immediately relevant to their lives, so they don't pay attention. Sort of like if I were to talk to you about the dos and don'ts of denture cream. You say I'll figure out later when I need to know it, and stop paying attention. I've taught in several schools that have tried to teach social skills, kindness, meditation, financial literacy, etc. In every case, the kids did not care. It was their least favorite part of the day because it felt like a waste of time. The point of education is to teach thinking. Not doing. A well-educated student can teach themselves these things. A quick Google search can teach you how to file taxes, cook, etc., but you can't Google how to do Algebra 2 and expect to understand what you read without some background in the subject matter. Edit I got up votes. Now I'm mad with power. So, they'll say this. I hear arguments like this post all the time, and I think the real issue is people not taking responsibility. I can't cook. That must be the school's fault. We need education reform. No, it's not the school's fault. It's your fault. You could literally Google a recipe in 20 seconds. Stop blaming other people for your problems. People don't realize that the point of education isn't to teach facts, but to change your brain. For example, physics and math majors earn the highest scores in the MCAT, GMAT, and LSAT. It's not because they learned those things in class, but because their curriculum emphasizes logical thinking. When students slack in schoolwork, they're not just missing out on the opportunity to know stuff, they're missing out on the opportunity to be smarter. Story 4 This used to be called Home EC, and most schools had it. Then boomers did away with it because it cost too much. Now they make fun of young people for not knowing things they would have learned in Home EC. Story 5 I am opposed to it. There's no reason parents can't teach these things to their kids while doing said tasks. School isn't responsible for every single thing. Also, with the internet, if a parent doesn't know changing a tire, for example, they can easily learn. Story 6 My public school had classes that teach these things. I graduated high school a decade ago. I took home economics and learned how to cook. I took financial literacy to learn about taxes and budgeting and investing. Is Utah just way ahead of the other states, or is this a made-up issue? I've seen people that took these classes at my school post memes about not learning how to pay taxes, and I wonder if the real problem is that nobody remembers this stuff because they teach it to you when it isn't relevant to your life. Story 7 Washing clothes. So you put the clothes in some detergent, push a button, then dryer, then a hanger. If you can't figure out washing clothes or cooking on your own, definitely shouldn't be allowed to drive. Taxes, debt, and personal finance is something that should be taught. Story 8 I think that they already waste enough time, and it would be worse for kids whose parents already taught them that stuff. Washing clothes is really a 20-minute lesson, and cooking taxes have their own elective classes already. Story 9 Your grandparents had home economics classes for the girls and shop trade classes for the boys. Every once in a while, a member of the opposite would sign up for and take the wrong class. To much humor, they don't teach home EC or have shop classes anymore. Story 10 I think it's ridiculous that washing clothes and basic cooking would be considered adult stuff. These are all things I learned at home and was doing for myself by high school. Are people's parents really just doing all this for them? Story 11 Nope. Parents have to take some responsibility for having kids, too. Also, cooking has largely been dropped from curriculums, mainly because of the danger in it. Kid drops chicken on the dirty floor and picks it up quickly. Kid knocks boiling water off the stove. Schools would be sued quite quickly. Tax, yeah. But wouldn't it be better to teach kids about how governments use their tax? Story 12 Hey, erase the deal about the whole paying taxes thing. It changes every single year, by design. Taxes are hard. They don't need to be, but they are. Teach critical thinking and reading comprehension instead. Story 13 Don't forget civics. We need to start teaching civics again so people learn how bills and elections work and that there's nothing mysterious about it. Story 14 This is all stuff anyone would be able to get info online or ask somebody at home. Hey mom, how do you write a check, boil an egg, change a tire, get your prescriptions filled? It boggles the mind that kids would be willing to sit there and share at school for hours to passively listen to this, while adulting simply means that you take the time to look it up yourself and learn on your own. Since you are adulting, you get to decide how much time you want to spend on any of these things. Learning to cook does not mean you have to become a chef. It just means you can feed yourself reasonably nutritious food that you enjoy eating. You can go all out and learn to bake a fancy quiche if you enjoy it, or just learn to fry a couple of eggs in 2 minutes. You decide and have the power over how you want to feed yourself. It's okay if you don't want to learn to do your taxes. Although if you only have one job and don't have properties or business, it could be so straightforward that it's probably worth learning to do on your own in a couple of hours. There's no need to buy a sewing machine to alter your clothes unless you think you would enjoy it as a permanent hobby. But anyone can spend a couple of dollars on a cheap sewing kit and look up how to sew a button, because it only takes a few minutes and it does come in handy. Totally fine to wait until your button falls off. There are no prescribed items you must know to be an adult. You just have to do the best you can with what you have. And that often means learning something new on your own when needed, and you get to decide how to do it. Story 15. Japanese schools do this to a degree. The students are responsible for cleaning the classroom and serving lunch to their classmates. I think it would be a great idea if well explained and supported by the community. Otherwise, the school risks parents going bananas. Think Karens, and who knows what. Story 16. It's so funny how many of you think that kids will actually be interested in learning about taxes, stocks, etc. In what world do you think high schoolers would be attentive in a class about budgeting taxes? Have any of you met high school kids before? Story 17. No. Off. Until you can find room in the curricula for all the academic stuff that doesn't get taught presently, you can't turn schools into your own little special interest. Story 18. I'm pretty frustrated by the amount of people that don't understand that school isn't supposed to spoon-feed you every piece of information you'll need as an adult, but instead is supposed to teach you to learn, think critically and logically, and be resourceful, among many other things to help you help yourself. If anything, it's just the over-focus on testing that causes this kind of learning to take the back burner to instead teach how to take some dumb tests that don't even assess these abilities. Story 19. Who doesn't know how to do laundry? If you can't figure out that you need to wash your clothes after you've worn them without someone telling you how, I don't have much hope for you. If you're capable of using Google, you're able to learn how to cook whatever dish you want. Same with taxes, insurance, mortgages, loans, etc. If you can use Google, you can find all of this information. The school's job, other than teaching basic arithmetic, reading, and writing, is to give you the tools that allow you to process information and come up with your own ideas about them. It is not to spoon-feed you into being an adult. Story 20. These are things that can be learned independently by simply doing them. Taxes are damn near idiot-proof in most cases because they're designed to be washing clothes, follow the instruction manual, cooking, watch YouTube, follow a recipe. What these all have in common is that you need a solid grasp on numeracy and literacy. These are things that must be explicitly taught. These are the core skills that underpin almost everything. People who complain about not being taught how to do their taxes tend to have shitty numeracy skills. People who struggle to fill out a form tend to have shitty literacy. Can't read instructions. Literacy issue. You can make education as practical as possible, but the fact is many don't want to learn until it's too late. I say this as a teacher, we really do a lot to make education as relevant to real-world needs as possible, but there's not getting around the fact that a person must learn to be fluent in both reading and writing, as well as be able to think mathematically to cope in the real world. The rest of what we do is for the purpose of teaching you how to learn effectively, how to think in different ways, how to adapt to unfamiliar challenges, and how to deal with abstract ideas. We don't teach the model of the atom because you need to know where the elections go. We teach you so that you can learn how to grasp concepts that are not directly observable, make logical conclusions from them, and apply abstract ideas to real-world phenomena. The actual topics are just vehicles for these skills. Story 21. I would have been bored out of my skull when I moved out of my parents' house. My mom kept calling me asking if I needed to know how to do X, Y, or Z. Mom, do you know how to X? Me been doing that since I was 5, Mom. Mom, what about Y? Me been doing that since I was 12, Mom. But what Z? Me blink, blink. Mom, I'm the one who had to teach Dad how to do that. Remember, Mom, but your brother was calling me for weeks after he moved me, yeah, because he made me do all that for him. And at work, Mom, stop calling me. Edit for all the below replies, people. Calm down. Yes, I know she was worried about me. Yes, I know there are very shitty parents out there, mine among them. Am I glad for the good points they had? Yes, but I'll just say that kind of concern from them at that point was not the norm. Story 22. You mean things parents should be teaching their children without relying on parents to teach them. Here, you teach them this because I don't want to hear. You teach them this because I don't have the time to hear. You teach them this because I don't know how to teach. How about we teach people how to be parents without involving religion or politics? How about we teach people how not to be parents if they don't want to? How about we make a strong middle class so that parents have time and energy to teach their children the things that they need to know and can still do things like pay rent and feed themselves? Man, life is hard. Story 23. You mean home economics. That is literally what home economics was in my area. It was an elective, but most people took it instead of an extra math or history. Also, what about kids who do all that stuff at home anyway? I doubt those kids want that in school and at home. Story 24, definitely not. The school day is long enough already, and it would be very costly to add another hour. Some sort of home economics should be available as an elective class, but there are lots of kids that learn the basic skills from their parents. For kids who have been doing laundry, cooking, and so on for years as regular chores, it would be so frustrating and wasteful to sit through a mandatory class on that. I do agree that some basic money management skills should be taught, but that can be done in math class. I remember calculating interest and keeping a pretend budget as homework. Story 25, well, my kids learned that at home. I did not learn anything at home, but taught myself. I didn't have much education either due to neglect. I needed to learn, and for the most part, if you can read instructions, then you can do it. Today there is YouTube and such as well, and not sure why people can't do laundry or cook if they can read. I'm thinking also, my kids all took home economics, sewing, etc. So isn't already there. So my first thought is it would be a really boring class for some that don't need it, but an easy credit and helpful for those that do. An extra hour of their time every day adds up though, and not worth it if not needed. I'm also thinking since we moved to a different state, the education here is shockingly terrible. We've been blown away at the lack of education and efforts to push kids through the system at all costs. My son came home laughing on his first day, because tests here aren't actually tests. The teacher shares the answers when someone raises their hand. It's crazy. My daughter had an assignment on her third day here regarding a subject she had no knowledge of because she entered midterm and should have failed or had to redo it after studying, because she only got a 56 on it. The teacher gave her a B with some story about knowing half of it anyway. That's not right. She doesn't learn the subject if she's being pushed through. Something needs to be done, but I don't have any answers. I'm so concerned about kids growing up in this type of school system. They can barely read. Maybe that's half the problem right there. Story 26, high school, 8 classes a day for 4 years 1. English with 1 year foreign language 2. Science with 1 year of either engineering or programming 3. History with 1 year of civics and law 4. Math with 1 year of financial and business management 5. Gym with 1 year divided into first aid, ed, drug and alcohol awareness, and diet and nutrition 6. Art 7, study period 8. Lunch, I would also support any student who wants to be allowed to test out class. If parents want their kid to sit out of ed, then that child would need to take the ed final and test out. If the kid already speaks a second language at home, then they could take that language final, prove they know at least a year's worth, and test out. No reason to teach kids stuff they already know. They don't get credits, but they do free up that period to take whatever other class they want. How about teaching financial literacy and media literacy? In today's world, it would do wonders for society if the next generation could avoid taking on too much debt and buying into garbage news and conspiracy theories. Just imagine. Story 27-1. I just realized there's a few generations that don't know what the home EC and civics classes are. 2. You should know how to wash clothes because your parents should be teaching you those things. 3. Unfortunately, public education in the USA is wildly underfunded, and some things just aren't up to the school to teach you, like how to wash your clothes and cook basic food. Story 28. I think more financial classes would be wise. Cooking is cool, but washing clothes, parents shouldn't rely on schools to teach kids basic life skills. Story 29. Opposed. 1 hour every day for 4 years, 8 or 12, is just way too high. How about it as a mandatory elective and you take 2 of them in HS totaling 1 year? I did woodshop, mechanical design, architecture, art, and economics as electives. Just remove 2 of those and you can add home life understanding or some. Also, people mention home EC. I had that, and it was stupid as we in the course of 5 months made cookies and a gingerbread house. No, really, that is it. Literally OCT to DEC was a gingerbread house. I have no clue how, but it is true. Story 30. No one would pay attention. Do you really think teenagers would actually want to stay longer in school when it already takes up half of their day to learn something they usually don't have to do themselves for many more years to come? The cry of I wish school taught me that is only bad hindsight of people that didn't take the time to learn it themselves or from someone. What's worse is that many schools actually offer courses like budgeting, cooking, and home services to not call it chores, to teach exactly that. Guess who takes these extracurricular activities? That's right, it's not those who end up complaining about it on the internet, because they never A, tried, and B, looked around outside of their immediate comfort zone. That was the decision-making of their guardian or their friends. Story 30. One, it'd be difficult to find why this would be a bad idea. I know some people would say that we shouldn't put that on teachers, and that it is the responsibility of parents to teach these things, but I say give teachers the pay they deserve for basically being the pillars of society staff schools appropriately so no teacher has too many students, give them a yearly or monthly fund to purchase extras, and I think many teachers would be for it. On the other side of the argument concerning parents, I know that parents should teach their children a wide range of things, and sometimes that works out great, but no one can expect every parent to be a good cook, a good accountant, a good philosopher, a good carpenter, a good mechanic, a good therapist, or any other number of things all at once. By that logic, we should also abolish math classes. Your parents can teach you calculus and get rid of social studies. Your parents should be great historians and so on. Parents do have an obligation to teach where they can. For everything else, we have teachers. My little rant. In short, I think it's a great idea. Story 32. We had industrial arts, home economics, consumer economics, and adult living as required classes in middle school and high school. It was great. I remember doing a project on generic versus name brand products. In the end, though, we could have used ongoing classes that teach how to fix household electronics, how to take care of a home, etc. I really love the Korean and Japanese practices of having school children take care of their schools. They don't have janitors. All school children are required to do the tasks. Story 33 that is called parenting. I know plenty of kids have garbage parents, but we already put so much responsibility on teachers to get kids their education and come out of school as a half-decent individual who plays well with others. Not everything is the role of school. There are other pillars of the community, you know. Story 34. That was called Home EC back 25 years ago when I was in high school. And everyone had to take the class. I thought it was pretty decent even at the time. Story 35. Why is it teachers' job to teach everything? They used to teach reading, writing, and maths. Now, they're expected to teach social, emotional, intelligence, well-being, etc. You want them to suddenly start teaching basic life skills to function as a human too, because they don't do enough already. I agree these things should be learned, but it's not the responsibility of schools. Story 36, we had a subject in primary school called domestic science, where we were taught sewing, washing clothes, basic cooking, making starch from scratch, personal hygiene, etc. It was my favorite subject in school. Heard the subject is no longer being taught in schools these days. Story 37 repost by somebody else. I see this we should have learned real life skills in school thing quite a bit, and I want to take a moment to address it. The following is not an attack on you, but rather on the sentiment you expressed. I think you did learn accounting and budgeting for a house in first grade when you learned how to add and subtract. Surely by sixth grade, you'd mastered 4-digit addition and subtraction, which, for most of us, is quite enough to construct a budget. If you wanted to extrapolate your monthly income to yearly goals, surely the multiplication you learned by 7th grade would do the trick. If you wanted to get super fancy and figure out how much interest your savings account will accrue, that same multiplication applied with a little understanding of fractions would fit the bill. What school can't teach you, though, is the willpower to actually sit down and write out a budget and stick to it. School tries to instill this lesson indirectly, what with points and grades and earning and such, but it's not a lesson that easily transfers for some. Let's move on to the next one, how to build credit. I suppose school could have taught you the formula for calculating your FICO score, but you'd have to use quite a bit of that math you learned in Algebra 2 to really do it well. By the way, carrying large balances relative to the maximum amount you can borrow, applying for a lot of credit in a short time, and not paying your bills on time all hurts your credit. Applying for limited credit, spaced out, using that credit, and then paying it off on time builds your credit. Now, what are we going to do with the remaining 45 minutes of the period? Again, schools try to help you practice these skills. Kind of kid who turns in work late all the time, bad grade credit score. Kind of kid whose dog always eats the homework. No one is going to believe you when the dog really eats your homework. Kind of student who makes a good faith effort to learn and participate. You might find that 79 turning into an 80, doing good earns you credit. Doing bad burns your credit. Taxes, I love this one. Schools could have better prepared you to do your own taxes if they had placed more emphasis on making the instructions for every assignment more difficult to read and written in the most obtuse way possible. They could have compounded the lesson by ensuring that completing any assignment required for you to locate and properly fill out 4 separate forms, 2 of which you would require you dig through piles of your old work in order to complete. I'm sure no one would have complained about that. How to apply for a loan. Step 1, call the lending institution of your choice. Step 2, declare that you would like to borrow some money. Step 3, answer a bunch of questions, including what your SS is and your total yearly income. Step 4, get approved or declined. No one reads your resume. It's a page, and most employers know it's bullshit. Cover letter isn't much better. But even if they had a great deal of weight, cover letters and resumes for that matter are best as documents tailored to their specific workplace. Tailoring your writing to a specific audience task, one of the chief skills English class is trying to teach you. Hey, race the bottom line, you are right. Everything important in your life you do have to learn on your own. School cannot be the place to give you all the knowledge you'll ever need. Especially in a world moving as quickly as ours is, the best school can do is to help you train your brain to deal with complex, abstract concepts and apply those skills to specific tasks. School can teach you how to learn. The algebra and the literary analysis is the substance of how that is done. It's not really important to be able to list off the major character flaws of Macbeth, far more important to be able to take an obtuse document, Shakespeare tax code, and make sense of it. Far more important for you to be able to think about this guy who got everything he wanted and still wasn't happy, and what that means for your life. Story 38, these kind of things wouldn't require an extra hour every day, perhaps a required class for a semester or a year. A home EC class with an appropriate curriculum would cover it. Story 39, that's already a thing where I grew up, Sweden. It's called Hemkunskap, which translates to home knowledge. You learn how to cook, clean, manage a household budget, nutrition, and how to fix things around the house. Story 40, they used to, for us it was called home economics and the other life studies. There's also shop, they did away with them in the early 2000s in most of the USA, I believe. Story 41, I don't know, but maybe parents should also have a responsibility in the welfare of their children. Hygiene, health, nutrition, etc. should be taught in the home as well. Taxes and stuff about employment, sure teach those in schools. Story 42, Sue, school should do parenting for an hour every day, apart from taxes, which should be a chapter in math. The other skills should be taught by the parents. Story 43, I'm sure it's been mentioned, but we used to have classes for this. I don't mean just at my school until the 70s. Everyone took civics, health, and home economics. This covered pretty much everything a high schooler needed to exist as an adult, though sometimes just girls took home EC, while the boys took shop or mechanics, as men were still expected to work while the wife stayed home. Then in the 80s, this all went away, usually due to budget cuts. But at one time, this was all a normal part of high school. There were classes, typically civics and health were mandatory. Often health was tied to gym class. Health covered hygiene, ed, basic first aid, etc. Home EC was simple cooking skills, how to balance a checkbook, everyone used them then, but essentially just basic finances, maybe some sewing, ironing, etc., how to run a home more or less. Civics covered how to behave and think like a decent human, wine how you vote, etc. Though what they taught at the time, all of this, understand that life in society was much different. Everyone was supposed to create the perfect nuclear family, and the educational system was stuck in the 50s more or less until STEM and standardized testing became a norm. The education system in America today is disgusting and completely needs to be rethought and overhauled. Sorry for the edits. I kept remembering more. Story 44, I don't see the point. If it was optional, sure, that's fine, but I'd have been so pissed when I was in school if I had to waste my time learning how to wash clothes and pay taxes, considering those things are super easy to figure out, assuming you don't own a company or something and are just paying your regular, normal person taxes. Story 45, kids, high school has a one-semester class for health, which includes ed, nutrition, and other general health items. It would be awesome if there was a basic life skills class for the other semester. Story 46, I don't know if you guys had this, but in my country, we already have that in our school program where they teach about taxes, washing clothes, and cooking. Story 47, home EC classes used to be far more common than they are today, but they're still out there. Really though, cooking, washing your clothes, doing your taxes, if you can follow directions, you can do them. I teach my students how to read carefully and think critically. They can easily apply those skills to cooking, read a recipe, follow directions, pay attention to the task. Washing clothes, read the labels on the clothes, read the instructions on the detergent, push the label buttons on the machine, and doing their taxes, log into any of the many free programs, read the directions, and follow them. Get stuck during any of those tasks. Use any of the many resources available to you to problem solve, help sections, customer service, YouTube, Google. Story 48, in Denmark, we have 1 year in school where you learn to cook and also learn basic crafting, but I think it's a shame that we don't have any classes where they teach about taxes and finances. I learned how to manage my taxes at the age of 24 because I had a 1-year internship as an accountant. Story 49, in British Columbia, part of the high school curriculum is a course called planning, typically taken in the 10th grade, but can be taken right before graduation, that is intended to help students plan for life after high school, whether it be higher education or full-time work. I support the idea of making adult stuff part of this course in addition to the existing planning aspect, perhaps extending it into a full-year read 2-semester course in order to fit everything in. Additionally, maths and native language courses should focus on teaching what's more useful in daily adult life, e.g., financial maths and grammar. respectively, rather than things like pre-calculus and language arts. Story 50, I wouldn't want to see kids in my country, the United States, have an extra hour of school, because I think they already have problems with too much classroom and not enough breaks. I was sort of just naturally built for long periods of concentration, but most people I know are not, and they had a really hard time in school. The stuff I've read by productivity experts encourages more breaks than we ever got in school. It seems to me like the items you've mentioned and a lot of other living skills adults should have could either be covered in a required class that takes the place of an elective or rolled in with the regular curriculum in required classes that use similar skills. I learned the basics of all of those in middle school and a lot of other stuff too, but it was a long time ago, and I don't know if they still teach those. I also had the benefit of a stay-at-home parent who made sure to really work with me on all of that stuff, but that's not realistic anymore. As I think about it, that just makes the idea of covering it in schools more important rather than less so. Story 51, we already have that in most Scandinavian countries today. Here in Sweden, it's called hem, konsumentkunskap home, and consumer knowledge, or just henkunskap for short. Until the 1960s, it was taught to girls only, but now it's mandatory for all. It usually 2 to 4 hours per week, if I recall correctly. The content is set by Skolverkets, Swedish National Agency for Education, and contains the following in grade 16 food, meals and health recipes and instructions, and how they can be read and followed, as well as common words and concepts for baking and cooking, and different methods for this. Planning and organizing the work of preparing meals and other tasks in the home, utensils and technical equipment that can be used for baking and cooking, and how these are used in a safe way, hygiene and cleaning when handling, cooking, and storing food. Various tools to support the planning of varied and balanced meals, and how meals can be distributed over a day. The importance of the meal for community, consumption and economy, young people's finances, savings and consumption, the difference between advertising and objective consumer information. Comparisons of some common goods, for example, based on comparative price, environment and lifestyle, some different eco-labels of products and their significance, choice and use of goods and services used in the home and how they affect the environment and health, recycling at home and in the immediate area, and how it works. Different food traditions, for example, when celebrating holidays, in grade 7 to 9 food, meals and health comparisons of recipes, and calculation of quantities when cooking, creating your own recipes, baking and cooking, and different methods for this, how the choice of method affects the work process and the result. Planning and organizing the work of cooking and other tasks in the home, utensils and technical equipment that can be used in baking and cooking, and how these are used in a functional and safe way. Hygiene and cleaning when handling, cooking, and storing food. Individual needs for energy and nutrition, for example in sports, and how meals can be composed according to different needs, how to arrange meals, and the importance of the meal for community and well-being. Consumption and economy, young people's personal finances, such as shopping over the internet, borrowing money, shopping on credit or installments, and subscribing. Household finances, and to calculate the cost of housing, consumption, travel and credits, consumer rights and obligations. The impact of advertising and the media on the consumption habits of individuals and groups, positions in the selection of goods and services. For example, when purchasing clothes, food, and travel from the perspectives of economic, social, and environmental sustainability. Comparisons of products based on a few different aspects, such as price and quality, environment and lifestyle, how food and other goods are produced and transported, and how they affect the environment and health, how to manage and take care of food and other consumables in the home. Washing and cleaning, as well as various routines and methods for this. Division of labor in the home from a gender equality perspective. Current societal issues concerning personal finances, food and health, different food traditions, their origin and significance. Story 52, actually this would work a lot better for a lot of people I know. Schools in Australia finish at 3 to 3:30 p.m. So going forward to 4:30 p.m. would work better for the 9 to 5, and especially the 8 to 4 parents. Story 53, my old school had a few sewing woodworking classes, but they were only in the budget for 2 years with underqualified teachers. Adulting classes would have been 100 possible if my school had just removed religion classes. Not from the curriculum, it just shouldn't be a separate class. It could easily be put in the history classes. Story 54, I don't think it is really the role of schools to teach children absolutely everything about life. What about your parents or the family that raises you? But then I guess maybe not everyone has a family with the time and ability to teach them this stuff. Still kind of sad though. I don't want school to teach my kids to do life stuff. I want to teach them. Story 55, whenever I hear someone say, I wish school would teach me to do my tax. I wonder if this is the same kind of person that says, I'll never use maths once I finish school. tax laws change, but if you can read and have a basic understanding of maths, then you can do your taxes. Learning to pay tax in 2021 will likely be totally irrelevant in 2025. But learning to save receipts, add them together, and then read a form will be relevant until you die. Story 56. I don't know what kind of schools you guys have in America, but I covered taxes and percentages in math class, did cooking and food tech, and you don't need a high school education to work a washing machine. Story 57. I managed to learn to do all of this stuff in a lot less than 2,500 hours. You're basically trying to steal a third of the year of my life. Why would you want that? Are adults that retarded in your country that you need to waste time teaching children how to switch a button, read a recipe, or fill in tax papers? As you said, this is basic stuff that everyone who knows how to read, write, and do basic calculations can do. Story 58. Honestly, 1 hour a week throughout high school would be enough to learn all this stuff. An hour a day is just excessive. Home EC as a mandatory thing should be real, and it should cover the economics of the home as well as the domestic life aspects. Story 59. We could change the structure of schooling from a factory model to a community model, rather than slice content into subject areas requiring every student learn at the same rate. Have a community model, a school community as Japan's model, where students are part of the community. Students participate in all the school functions as part of the community. Setting up classrooms, cleaning, preparing, serving, and cleaning up after meals are part of every member of the school's daily routines. What is taught at school is a reflection of our culture. We have been teaching using an authoritarian hierarchical social model, where the test is the goal and everything else is someone else's job. We could do so much better.